This is not the only channel about history on YouTube, and the algorithm recently recommended one that I was unaware of, the channel of the academic journal History and Theory. History and Theory is an important journal. I subscribe to it. I have done for nearly 20 years now, but I didn't know it had a YouTube channel. The particular video that it recommended to me, an interview with the philosopher of history Hayden White, included this commentary.
Technically speaking, a historian has no interest in any given individual unless they're a part of the elite group of agents that are supposed to make history. No, as historians, they have no interest in you. They have no interest in anybody in this room.
Technically speaking, White asserts, historians are only interested in the elites, in the people who, as the everyday phraseology would have it, make history. He says it so confidently, so matter-of-factly, that a listener might simply assume that it is a given that a historian's formal technical subject are the category of actors who shaped events. Except it's complete nonsense. This hasn't been true of history for well over a century, before White was even born. To give an example, Domenico Scandella, who lived from 1532 to 1600, was not a part of the trans-regional elites. He was a miller in a small village in a peripheral region, and yet the study of his life and thought are the central subject of one of the most influential works in 20th century historical study, a work that has shaped the theoretical development of both microhistory and the history of mentality. That book, by Ginsberg, is on my to-do list and will join White's reflections on Hegel, Rank and Marx soon. What White doesn't seem to get here is that what a person did, how important they were, is not what makes them interesting to a professional historian. It might be what makes them interesting to somebody who reads about the past, but not somebody who writes about the past. The criteria that the professional historian uses to decide whether or not something is worth exploring are radically at odds with those that were used in the 18th and 19th century. I talked about this when discussing White's influential book Metahistory. A serious issue, even in the mid-20th century when it was published, is that he assumes lessons drawn from the study of 19th century historians automatically apply to contemporary historians, seemingly unaware of the profound shifts that happened in historical study, exemplified but not exclusive to the Annals School in France in the interwar period, which can be summed up basically as a very extensive broadening of the historical horizon. In 1900, history was still primarily political history, the history of public events and works and the biographies of the elites who directed them, histories of war. But in the early 20th century, we began to get economic and social history, and also the histories of non-elite groups or classes. That Marxist concept of class comes into being as an idea intended to conceptualize how a large body of loosely aligned non-elite people can interact. So the bourgeois, the workers, and so on can interact with the broader historical events. And it's precisely about trying to conceptualize a history that is imagined to work not biographically, not through the lives of great men. Further broadenings followed. In the 20s and 30s, women began to enter the frame, and in the 60s and 70s, there's a huge explosion of work on why women have been left out of history, the concepts of gender, domestic history, things like that. And those expand, and we get conceptual studies of sexuality, of race, and so on. And alongside that, we get expansions of cultural history, histories of food, religious practice, and plenty of other things that increasingly bear no resemblance to public events, politics, or elites. For example, in 2019, I wrote a book about how coins and banknotes have been represented in board games since 1903. Objects that were made, played, understood almost exclusively outside of elite circles. But that book is not any less a history than my discussions of the chronologies of kings. This shift of subject from a point when historians talked about public events to a point where historians talk about anything human beings do in the past comes with a lot of unspoken theoretical baggage. It requires shifts of justification for why one subject should be pursued over another. Shifts in what purpose of history is, from moralising to reconstruction. And it is that which White seems blind to. I keep saying seems because it's very explicit in what White says. It's very obvious in the way he talks in various works that he does keep repeating this general idea, perceiving his contemporaries to be working in the same way as an 18th or early 19th century historian. And yet, White is a very sophisticated thinker, and I find it hard to believe he's really completely blind to the fact that he's talking about something that belongs 2 centuries ago instead of something that's contemporary. So, like I say, seems to think this. Let's talk about novelty. Research should always say something new. There is a place, an important place, for finding ways to communicate academic knowledge to a broader audience. But the point of research is not to shine a light on a particular part of the heap that is the accumulation of human knowledge. It is to add to that heap. And there are 2 ways to do that. You can attempt to bring fresh insight to an already studied problem. Or, and to be honest, it's a lot easier to do this, you can look at something others have not previously examined. That is what I was doing when I was looking at the depiction of money in games. There are a few histories dating from the beginning of the 20th century on the history of traditional games, because, as I've already mentioned, the notion that history was restricted to some part of human activity, a toxically male part involving politics and battles, was already in full-blown retreat by that point. But essentially, there's nothing on modern board games, those produced after 1903. The desire for novelty links to the second thing historians look for in research nowadays, which is unrealised sources. Those are particularly exciting. I did not bring a huge range of those to bear when I was looking at Toy Money, but I did access the archives in Leeds of the company Waddington's, which had not been looked at before. And there's more to be usefully mined out of those, and more archives that haven't been examined. And there's nothing unique in my doing that. Ginsberg writes in the English preface to his study of Pinocchio. In 1962, I spent part of the summer in Udine, in the extremely rich, and at that time still unexplored, deposit of inquisitorial papers. The key phrase here is unexplored. This is what every good researcher is looking for. An archive, a text, a collection, or a site, which has been neglected or was simply unknown to their predecessors. If you can find a source no one has looked at, you can shed new light on, well, something. Which means, ultimately, a source's potential, since the development of primary source doctrine in the 19th century, rests more on the degree to which it has been exploited than any innate significance attributed to the past events it reveals. If you've ever wondered why Greek lawyers in the 4th century BC, diarists in early modern England, ancient Egyptian administrators, or 18th century South Asian poets seem to attract so much more attention than their equivalents in other times or places, it's sources. They weren't more politically active, more influential, or more talented. It is simply that more evidence of what they did survives. With that, I'm put in mind of Shelley's famous sonnet, written in 1819, coinciding with the beginning of the profound theoretical shifts in historical study I've just mentioned. On the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on those lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Because that is the point. Sources can condemn to obscurity the greatest king, or elevate the humblest miller. To reframe White's remark more correctly, historians, technically speaking, have no interest in anyone, only in sources, and it is through sources that we, historians, make history.